You're listening to the Empowered and Embodied Show. In this episode, Louise and I are pulling back the curtain on our big branding shift and sharing how our own personal growth and development journeys led us each to this place of reclaiming our personal power. We're excited to share this juicy episode with you as we step onto the new path, moving from focusing on creating kick-ass careers to living lives filled with joy, confidence, and ease. We hope you enjoy this episode as much as we do. Hi there. Welcome to the Empowered and Embodied Show. I'm Kim Romain.
And I'm Louise Neil. We're two transformational coaches who are also fellow travelers on the path of growth and self-discovery. And we're inviting you along for the ride.
That's right. We're right here in the trenches with you, navigating the ups and downs of life. And each week we'll be sharing our own experiences, bringing you conversations with amazing guests, and exploring insights and strategies that have helped us find more clarity, confidence, and ease in our lives.
And trust us, we do not have it all figured out. We're learning and growing right alongside you.
So if you're ready to rise above the chaos, doubt, and confusion that sometimes life throws our way
and step into a more empowered and embodied version of yourself,
then you're in the right place. Let's get started. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Kickass. Oh. Wait a minute. Oh my goodness. No. Welcome to our first episode of the Empowered and Embodied Show. I'm one of your lovely co-hostesses, Kim, and I'm joined by
Louise,
our other lovely co-host. We have no guest today, Louise. Like normally we have a guest. What's going on here?
We do. And what the heck is going on with this name change thing too?
Yeah, change. It happens, doesn't it?
Yes. We've been busy.
We've been very busy. We're going to actually get to the name change and like everything that's behind it in a little bit, but I love how we always start the show. So I think we should keep at that. What do you think?
I do. Celebrations are a big part of not just our podcast, but it's a big part of our lives. And so we would like to continue sharing it. I would like to continue sharing it with our listeners for sure.
100%. I'm down with that. So Louise, what are you celebrating this week?
What am I celebrating? So we could go into like all kinds of cool things that have happened to me this last week, right? New clients, new products, new things on the horizon. And although I want to celebrate those things are things that I feel like are happening to me. And what I want to do is celebrate like the things that like are deeply personal, right? Like these little things that maybe don't seem so big on the outside, but things I'm really proud of on the inside. And so this last week, I'm really proud of how I've showed up for myself and not let things come crashing in on me. I can get really excited and really like the calendar can fill up with a lot of things and I can put a lot of pressure on myself to do those things. And this last week has really been about knowing what's best for me and putting myself like on the top of the list. Not to say that work comes second, but like I enjoy work, but like I'm choosing those things that bring me joy. And so yeah, that's been my week.
Well, I mean, it definitely sounds like that is going to be a lead in for where we go in our conversation today, in many ways. Because it's that personal place it's, you said it's not that work's not important, because it is, right? What we do and who we are in the world is important. And yet what I'm hearing from you is this place of going so inward that it's not about what's happening in your world, let alone the world around you.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. Yeah. And that's where I feel empowered.
Yeah. See, it's truth. We're totally going to go there. All right. So, I feel like I'm going to take the other word in our title in terms of what I'm celebrating, because it is a place of embodiment that I'm celebrating right now. Some super crunchy times recently, going through a breast cancer journey with my mom. And that is comes with all sorts of crunchiness, particularly because we actually live in different countries at this point. So getting to be with her during the journey is not as easy as I would like it to be. Like many entrepreneurs, I am feeling this slowdown of 2024 financially, and that feels a little crunchy. So a whole lot of crunchy things, sick kiddo, trying to manage all the balls in the air, lots of crunchiness. And in truth, there also have been a lot of breakdowns, right? Allowing myself to fully be in my emotions through the process has been frustrating at times, because I want to be able to rise above it, and absolutely healing. Allowing myself to embody the crunchiness, to embody the feelings and the emotions that come along with it. For me to be fully in my body experiencing what's happening is actually allowing me to get through it in a way that it's not just getting through. Mm-hmm. It's actually experiencing what's happening as I'm experiencing it, rather. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's something we don't create space for in our lives. And it's definitely not something that is easy to learn or accessible for us to learn, everywhere. And it is something that I've had to learn over many, many years. And I'm absolutely celebrating that. I'm celebrating that place of being so centered in my body that I can experience all that is happening on a level that allows me to heal as I'm moving through it.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Celebrations.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And just being, and I think, we're going to get into this, and maybe we'll get into this right now, about why we've kind of wanted to take our podcast in a different direction. And Kim, you so articulately dove into like the power of embodiment and the power of like being present, not just doing and pushing and trying to get through, but actually like being. Yeah. I'm curious what's that played in your life? That presence. What part has that played?
Oof. Well, there was so many years that I wasn't present, right? I was all in my head. I was very, like most of us walking around. I was a head without a body. I was, I could feel pain, I could feel pleasure, all of that stuff, but it had to be kind of loud and obnoxious for me to pay attention to it. I honored what was going on in my mind. I prioritized my brain, my thoughts, my knowledge, my wisdom above everything else, because that's what I thought I was supposed to do. Mm-hmm. So societally, right, whichever side we're on the border of Canada and the United States, in North America, it is absolutely a priority to be able to think your way through things. We've trained ourselves societally to believe that that is the way to get things done, to show our worth, to prove we know things, like all of that. And there was a part of me, I want to say probably close to 20 years ago, 20, 25 years ago, that I started to feel something different inside of me. I was like, this isn't right. I kept going down the path of proving I was smart enough and good enough and had the brain power and that I thought could think my way through. But I also started experiencing my body in a different way. Like introducing myself to a relationship with my body is how it started. For many reasons, I decided I needed to have a different relationship with my body, a better relationship with my body. That got accelerated when I had a daughter 14 years ago and was like, woof, I want to make sure whatever relationship she has with her body is real and true from the beginning. So that meant that I needed to actually understand what I was experiencing. And that was when I deepened my process of meditation and visualization, breath work, different types of body work, and really started to explore what wisdom was coming from my body that didn't have to be then processed through my brain. Because there is the wisdom that comes through our body and then we're processing through our brain, but then we're still in that loop, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that allowing myself that space to say, wait, what is this telling me? And how do I connect with it that's beyond words, that's beyond story? And probably over the last 5-ish years is when I've really gotten deep into that of being able to hold space for myself and others from that place of knowing that our bodies have a language of their own.
Yeah.
That are separate from the stories that we carry with them. Mm-hmm. So I know that didn't directly answer your question in terms of what part has it played, but that I don't actually know how to answer that question.
Well, I'm really hearing like there's a shift, right? Like the focus that we have that exists about our brain, our intelligence exists in our minds, in our heads, right? And when you, for a lot of reasons, decided to say, hey, like, no, there's something more here. There's this whole other part of me that actually has not just wisdom, but a language of its own. And I love that because it is that refocus, that I want to say mindset shift, but it feels too heady when I say it. But it's really just a different way of being and understanding what knowledge we holistically carry with us. I love that.
I appreciate you saying all that back because as I was listening, I heard what part it played. So the part that it has played is it's been a primary catalyst to finding my own liberation and personal agency. So, right, it's like I've stepped into that in many different iterations for the last 20, 25 years. And really in the last 5 years, I would call that liberation and personal agency. I really have reclaimed myself in a way that I didn't know was possible. So that's the part that it's played.
Yeah. Yeah. So through embodiment is empowerment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whew, what a great title for a podcast.
Right? I know. The Empowered and Embodied Show. Imagine that. And So Louise, I do want to hear your story, your journey to this place of empowerment, because I know it's so important to you. I'd love to, before we kind of go there, give a little bit, and I think it might lead into it as well, a little bit of the conversation that we had when we, back in April, started to discuss what was next for this podcast. We went on retreat to Ottawa together. We had that juicy time to be in person together. Share with us what that process was like to unpack what we've done and to find our way forward.
Yeah, and so, you and I try to get together annually to have these conversations, these meetings, these retreats, so that we can really immerse ourselves in not just what we want for our business, but like who we are and how we show up and how that manifests as a business. And our podcast is something that we have our own businesses, and this podcast is a place where we come together to talk about things that we are aligned with and that we feel are really important, and that's why we've partnered together for like years.
Yeah.
And when we were in Ottawa, we really started to kind of want to amplify our message because we felt like it wasn't connecting with us and who we are. We all go through change. We all go through this thing. And we loved our guests and we loved doing the podcast. And yet it felt like it wasn't filling a bucket like it used to. And so we dove into trying to understand why that was and what was going on. But instead of thinking our way to that answer, we took a really different approach and we started looking at who we are, how are we designed, and what gives us energy and what takes it away, like holistically, not just in the stuff that we do, but who we are as humans. And that was really, I think, enlightening and brought such a self-awareness to what it is that I wanted and what it is that you wanted, and how that started to like feed our souls almost. And that's kind of how we started to evolve and really talk about what it was that we wanted to do and that message that we wanted to deliver. We are all about creating kick-ass careers, like all over the place. And we've talked to amazing people that had kick-ass careers. And part of those conversations were also about their empowerment stories and how they took control of their careers to create their own kick-ass careers. And we also were hearing how people fully embodied who they were and how they started to show up differently in their lives and at work. And so it's different, but yet it's the same. We've just taken all of those threads that we felt were really important and started a little rebrand and a refresh so that we could start to be more articulate. Look at me trying to find the words. Be more articulate with our message and what we really want people to get out of this podcast.
Well, and I think there was a broadening of scope as well, right? Because as we were having those conversations, well, we were really enjoying the career aspect or the work aspect that our guests were bringing forward. The broader stories that they were bringing through, as you're talking about, that place of empowerment, that place where they stepped into their true selves, was the juicy bits that we were so excited to dive into with them. And so that allowing ourselves to broaden our own message through the podcast, but also in terms of the conversations that I think that we'll be having as we move forward with this rebrand. If that in and of itself felt empowering to me, making that decision.
Yeah. Yeah. Ooh, goosebumps.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when we were sitting in the Airbnb, and we were thinking about what do we call it. And it came really quickly. Like at that point, I think we were on day 3. We had Post-it notes, giant sticky Post-it notes all over the Airbnb. We'd gone through your business. We'd gone through my business. We'd gone through, who we are as people, who we are as leaders, what our desires are, what our visions are. We did all this amazing stuff. It was so yummy. And then when we came to it, we were like, okay, now let's talk about the podcast. Like, what do we want to do? And I'll speak very honestly. I was nervous to have that conversation. What did you feel going into that conversation? Do you remember?
Well, the whole conversation about the podcast was there was some nerve sightedness there, because it's like, ooh, like we are letting go. We both knew, I knew we were letting go of something, right? Yeah. And I didn't know what that meant. And so absolutely coming into that conversation and wanting to still be connected to there was a lot of feels and a lot of emotions there for sure. But yeah, I knew there would be this letting go, and by letting go, I think that for me was like a big catharsis. Like it was a big way to say like, yep, we're letting go, and now what could it be?
Yeah. What we had to make the space, right? Because we were in some patterns, we were in some rhythms. And we talk about this, like all these episodes, 126 episodes or something that we've done with Kickass Career Conversations. It was having this opportunity to talk about being in rhythm, being in a system, because we had created a system and a process, and we knew what we were doing, and we could do it in our sleep. And that was part of the problem, right? Mm-hmm. Not that it was broken, because it was not broken, but there was a problem. And there is, to me, identifying where there are crunchy bits, problems, something that feels fine. Like to me, the word fine is like, ooh, then what do we change? What needs attention?
That's right. It is a 4-letter F word after all.
After all, absolutely. Yeah, and everything was fine.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't broken. And yet we both knew something needed to change and adapt and move through. And so I was really nervous and was worried that we were going to get to the other side and not have this opportunity anymore. Because that was a real possibility, right? And there are lots of possibilities of what could have come. Mm-hmm. And what I loved was that through the process of identifying what we both wanted, there were several elements of doing this podcast together that we said, no, this fuels me. This does nourish me on some level. So what needs to then happen so we can continue with that nourishment without it just being fine?
Yeah. Yeah. And we started talking about how, like, what is it that is fundamentally transformational? We are transformational coaches after all. And we were talking about, like, in our business, in our lives, in what and how we see the world, what do we believe the world needs more of? What do we believe will make the difference, move the needle? And for me, it just fell out of my mouth, right? And it's empowerment when we reclaim that control, when we reclaim our lives and believe with every cell of our being that we are the driver, and we get to decide fast, slow, direction, stop, go, whatever that looks like. Right? Like that is absolutely, it's not just empowering for us. It sends ripples through the world. And that is systematically, I believe, how we make change.
Were you always somebody who saw themselves as an empowered being?
Oh, no.
Okay, good. Phew.
No. Like, and I think even for a while too, it was like that word empowerment. It's like everybody's just throwing it around and like
Oh, I
be
agree.
this empowered and that empowered and blah, blah, blah. And I don't even know what it meant. And it didn't really matter. Like
Mm-hmm.
for a long time in my life, it didn't matter. I felt like I was on a road going somewhere doing shit. Like it was all fine. It was all
It was all
good.
fine.
Right? Like, whatever. I'm going someplace. I'm doing great in my career. I'm climbing a corporate ladder. I'm having a good time. Right? I have a relationship. I have friends. I have a kiddo. Like, all of these things. It's just like, yeah, of course. Right? Like, I don't know. What's this empowerment shit? I don't know. Like, what are people talking about? But I didn't realize that I was like, not in control of really anything. Like, it looked like I was making choices, but I didn't know why I was making those choices. And I didn't really feel connected to those choices. And I just kept moving along. Calendar pages flip and you do something new and right. And you just are on autopilot. And you witness some of those things. But really, the majority of the time, it's just like, yeah, okay, I guess this is what I should be doing. This is where I should be going. So, right on. Um, but it was
So how did you
really,
start to reclaim that? Because like I heard you talking about reclaiming kind of
oh, yeah.
through the story of embodiment for me. Tell me what that was like.
Yeah. I got to a place in my life, and I think it was personally, I got there before I did professionally. I talk a lot about career empowerment and taking control of your career back. But for me, that career was kind of like an add-on. For me, it was personally being understanding that I was in a life that was fine. And I I didn't want to be fine anymore. Like, it wasn't good. Like, it wasn't bad, but it
Like there had to be
certainly,
more.
yeah, like it's like, well, this just can't be it. Like, am I supposed to go through the rest of my days like just feeling disconnected and like I don't know, partly cloudy and
Oh,
right? And it was those kinds of it was that kind of started it. And then I found something that was like brought a little spark to my life and I was like, "Ooh, how do I get that? How do I do more of that? How do I right bring that closer?" And that's when I started, like, I didn't know about this word empowerment, but that's when I actually started to take control of, did you like my air quotes? People on the
mm-hmm.
podcast can't see that, but um
They're good.
but yeah, but no, I actually started to say like, ooh, there's something there that is sparking something and I need to follow that. And I started to make choices and I started to do things differently. I started to show up differently in my life, differently in my relationships. And it was was me taking control. Like, me showing up differently is like empowering. It's like me
Mm.
reclaiming who I am and what I'm all about. But I don't know that I have it all figured out. I still like to follow those sparks and I still like get like all excited and juicy about something and it's like, "Ooh, how do I bring that closer?" But that's all practice. Right? That's all experimenting. That's all like reinforcing and building this empowerment muscle, building this idea that I am actually in control of what I do, where I allow my attention to go, what intentionally do I want to bring into my life, who steals my energy, like, name it. Like, there's right dozens of places that I start to reclaim. Now, I'm not always like on the ball. Like, sometimes I'm like, oh shit. Like, I didn't do that very well. I gave up a little control there and went on a little side trip. But it's this constant like readjusting and reintegrating and reevaluating. It's all an experiment, and it's this reflection and this reiteration that we go through that really just helps us figure out what to leave behind and what to continue to bring into our lives. So that's kind of like my empowerment story, but it really started to show up in my career too. And that's the door now, I think, that often uh, is my check-in, right? And it's like, ooh, where in my business, where in my career, have I given my power away today? And it's like, oh yeah, that person pissed me off and I gave them my power for a minute, right? Or, oh yeah, my calendar's all of a sudden really full. I let my calendar rule my life, right? And it's all of these things that are just reminders, I guess, as we go through our lives about continually bringing that back.
Yeah. So two things I heard so many good things. Two things that I want to pull on just a little bit. One is it's so interesting because you look at it in terms of where did I give my power? Who did I give my power to? What did I give my power away to?
Mm-hmm.
I look at it as where did my energy go? Which, right, that's that embodiment of it.
Mm-hmm.
So very often it's like I need to call my energy back to me. And that's how I love starting any group sessions that I do. I have us just kind of do a centering practice where we actually call our energy back because that's where we get our power from, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's the embodiment of the power, of the empowerment. So that was just one little thing that I was like, oh, that's so cool. Is different language, but
Yeah.
same idea. The other was out of my head, and this is why it's an unscripted show, and I have no idea what that thought was, but it'll hopefully come back. Um, it is so interesting to me that this was it. It's so interesting to me around language because both the words empowerment and embodiment, or the whatever derivation you're looking at with those words, are completely overused. They're completely, toxic positivity, glitter on poop, all that stuff in the world that neither of us is about.
Right.
And I think that was also like when those words came forward, I think it surprised us a little bit.
Yes.
And yet I also think that gave us an opportunity to reclaim what they mean.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that in talking about what we want from this show moving forward is the same thing that we wanted with the previous iteration. Is it's not about, okay, here are the 17 steps that you need to take to live an empowered and embodied life. No, what you just shared, Louise, is it is a constant unfolding. It's a constant experiment, right? That we're going through. I shared how crunchy, right? My celebration was being able to be in a place of embodiment during all of that place where I was feeling disempowered,
Mm-hmm.
right? A lot of disempowerment. I don't have control. I don't have power. I can't make these things happen. Holy shit, what's going on? Feeling a lot of disempowerment and then stepping into, for me, that place of embodiment where I feel connected to my body, where I can regulate my nervous system, where I can feel resourced and therefore reclaim my power, even though I've just had it depleted.
Right.
So I think we get this opportunity on this show to say, yeah, those are two buzzwords that are still really popular out in the world of pop psychology, and that's not how we're using them. Do you agree?
Right. Absolutely. And you and I are talking and sharing our story and using different language, yet you can see how we come together. You can see how empowered and embodied like are two parts of the same thing. And by having guests on our show and coming up in this wonderful season, the listeners will hear different stories and different definitions of what it means to be empowered and what it means to be embodied, which I love because there isn't one definition. It doesn't look one way. And so we get to explore that with our guests and practice empowerment and embodiment over and over and over again.
Imperfectly practice it, right? And that's part of it is this is a messy journey. Life is a messy journey, right? Absolutely. We help people with this stuff all day, every day, all year round. And we're still doing the work, right? We started off by talking about that inner place of tenderness that we go into, right? Life is lifing. Business is businessing. The world is worlding, right? We live within these systems that are not serving the global majority. Like there are fights and things that we are stepping up into. And it starts with that spark. It starts with going inside. And there are, at least in the English language that I know of, somebody please write in if they know of, but I don't know of words that can start to even encapsulate that idea of going within and fanning that flame, that spark, to then allow ourselves to show up for whatever we're doing in the world, whether it's, interpersonal, personal, professional, whatever it is. But it's that place. And that, I think that's for me where, when we're talking about empowerment and embodiment, it is starting from that inner landscape, because it can't come from the external landscape. And yet that's where we put so much of our attention. So if there's better words, please let us know, but we're not going to rebrand again anytime soon.
So yeah. And, on this podcast, Kim, you and I actually get to we kind of pull back the curtain a little bit and we get vulnerable as well, is because we don't have it all figured out. And, that was something that I was hearing from my clients, and I don't want to give that impression. Being in a coaching session is very different than being here on the podcast, right? And it's like, here's an opportunity for us to be able to dive in with you, listener, and learn something and take a nugget away and put it in our pocket, in our bucket, wherever that is. And that's our opportunity to be able to explore that part of us. It's messy and it's ugly, and Kim and I sometimes don't have another place to be messy and ugly. And so here we are with you trying to figure it all out and what all that looks like.
We promise not to bring all of our shit forward, though.
No. And I hope you didn't think that I was calling you ugly, because that wasn't it. It was like our stuff is sticky and messy sometimes.
It is. Life is sticky and messy.
Yes.
It just is. So I'd love to just kind of let people know what they can expect, because slightly different format. So we're still going to do the episodes fairly similarly if you were listening to our old podcast. So we'll start with our celebrations. We'll have guests most weeks, but we have decided that once a month we're going to do a solo episode with just Louise and I, to have conversations like this, to debrief a little bit about kind of what we've been hearing and talking about, and helping us digest it, along with helping you digest it as well as you're listening along. And other than that, it's, we'll end up with our golden nuggets at the end, because we both love doing that all the time in our conversations that kind of pull those threads through. Yeah, we're going to be here helping you find your way through what it means to reclaim yourself, right? That's really what we mean at the heart of this Empowered and Embodied show, is reclaiming yourself for yourself first.
Yeah. Whew. I can't wait.
I know. It's going to be so exciting. It's so exciting. We do have some amazing guests lined up that you're going to be hearing each week as we drop. And like I said, we'll be doing our monthly kind of just regrouping just with the two of us. Louise, what are your golden nuggets from today?
Oh, I love language. And through our conversation today, I was just really reminded that regardless of the word that we use, what you and I are talking about is just reclaiming self and coming back to self. And I love that because as soon as you said that, like I felt like I settled in my seat a little bit and I got a little more grounded today. So I wanted to thank you for that. And I really appreciate you. Thank you.
It is a love fest over here, friends.
It is.
If you don't know that yet.
It is. What is your nugget?
My nugget is fairly similar. I think what I want, the thread that I'm pulling forward though, is that idea of a spark, right? So it's not just going in, but it's going in with the intention of understanding that those sparks are there. Sometimes we have to look for them a little bit more, but they are there and we can absolutely fan them for ourselves. So.
I love that.
So thank you for that. Louise, do you have anything going on in the world? Since we usually leave this space open for our guests, do you have anything going on in the world that you want our listeners to know about?
Well, I would love the listener to check out my website and see what little promotion or little gift I have going on there. Always for the listener, there's something sweet over there. So you can check me out at louiseneil.com. How about you, Kim?
So I, a couple months ago, 2, 3, 4, 5 months ago, I don't even remember at this point, launched my, my StrengthsCape profile. This is a place for you to actually get to know yourself really, really well. So unlike other assessments, I help you go inside, with this tool to see yourself in a more holistic viewpoint and then actually know what to do with that information. So you can get to that over at kimromain.com/my-profile. And those links, both for Louise's website and for the StrengthsCape profile, will be in the show notes as well. Louise, thank you so much for joining us today. Wait, no.
Thanks for stopping by and sharing your story.
Yeah, it was so lovely. And I am looking forward to having more time to have these types of conversations because I think they are having this kind of debrief outside of having our guests allows a different level of integration and understanding for ourselves and our listeners as well. Always in service of you, our wonderful listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks again, listeners, for tuning in. And here's to finding your spark and knowing what to do with it when you do.
Oh, I love that. Thanks so much, Louise. Bye, everyone.
Take care. And that's all for this week's episode of the Empowered and Embodied Show. We hope today's episode has sparked something within you. Remember, we're all on this journey together. If something did resonate with you today, why not share it with a friend who might need to hear it too? You can find us everywhere you listen to podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're feeling generous, leave a review. Your feedback not only helps others find the show, but also helps us understand what's most valuable to you. Until next time, be kind to yourself, stay curious, and remember, we're walking right alongside you. Thanks for being part of our community.